Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. Ramadan Reminder number 13. Today I want to speak about an important topic, the topic of rizq. Because I think that this is something which as Muslims we don't really fully appreciate. Because all Muslims will say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Razzaq, i.e. He's the sustainer, the provider. But sometimes our behavior shows otherwise. We say Allah is the provider, yet we feel like what we receive as rizq is due to our own work, due to our own hands, and even the success, the careers we may have, we put this down to our own efforts, and we don't even thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the other hand, we see people falling into depression because of financial issues. There's even cases where people commit suicide, and the worst case scenario is people even kill their families because they think that, they cannot provide for them. And then we also have Muslims who are willing to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to further their career, to secure that job. Even if they don't, deep down at heart agree with this, but still they do this. They're willing to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they don't want this to affect their livelihood and their income and their future. And subhanAllah, brothers and sisters, we're not immune to this. All of us can be affected by this. So it's a good reminder for myself and for everyone, to mention some of the ayats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He says, translation of the meaning, there is no creature on the earth which is not dependent upon Allah for its provision. Subhanallah. And Allah also says, and in the heaven is your provision and whatever you are promised. Subhanallah, brothers and sisters, from these ayat we can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sole sustainer, the sole provider. He is Ar-Razzaq. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that our rizq has been promised. So what we're going to get, this is by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brothers and sisters. And subhanallah, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with a fitrah that we want more. We won't be satisfied. And even there are times where there are things out there, I'm not saying they're haram, there are things that are allowed. People can work in a halal trade, and their objective is to work for something which is permissible. But the reality is, brothers and sisters, if we were to focus all our energies on making this wealth, the reality is that how much time are we going to spend towards our purpose in life, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But subhanAllah, there's something which is even more important than this. As Muslims, we have so many more responsibilities than just working and earning, brothers and sisters. What about carrying the dawah? What about enjoying the good and forbidding the evil? What about working to resume the Islamic way of life? What about working to change the condition of the ummah? Brothers and sisters, these are all obligatory actions. When are we going to have the time and effort to do this? So brothers and sisters, there's many things that we need to be doing as Muslims, and the reality is that the last thing that should be a concern to us is thinking that if I go on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is going to affect my rizq, my livelihood, is going to affect the future of my children. This is the last thing that we should be thinking about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, tells us in the Quran, if you fear Allah and strive on His path, then He will provide for you from places that you would never have imagined. Subhanallah. And the irony is that in fact, when we're disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rizq, we're disobeying the one who is going to give us the rizq for the rizq. Subhanallah, this is crazy. So brothers and sisters, the key point to this reminder really is the fact that we should always remember and appreciate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Razzaq. He is the one who is the provider and the sustainer, and we should be thankful. And how do we show our gratitude? It's not just by words, brothers and sisters, it's by following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, O you who have believed, eat from the good things which we have provided for you, and be grateful to Allah if it is indeed Him that you worship. Subhanallah. And a final point I want to make, brothers and sisters, is that rizq is that which you consume, is that which you utilize, right? So reality is that you could fill up the banks, and if you don't utilize it, when you die, this was not your rizq, this was someone else's rizq. So imagine this, you've neglected the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all your life to accumulate this, and somebody else is going to enjoy it. Subhanallah, brothers and sisters, what was the point? I'll end on that note. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.